Thank you, Justice Menon. And may I now request Justice Madan B. Lokur to kindly give his address.
Thank you, Anandita. Mr. Lalit Bhasin, the President of the Bar Association of India, Chief Justice Rajendra Menon of the Delhi High Court, Mr. K.K. Venugopal, the Attorney General for India, Mr. Amarjit Singh Chandyok, the Vice President of the Bar Association of India, Ms. Madhavi Devan, Mr. Prashant Kumar, the President-elect of the Bar Association, and Ms. Anandita Pujari, the Secretary of the Association, the distinguished awardees, and congratulations to all of you for the excellent work that you've done. The distinguished participants, members of the audience, ladies and gentlemen. Like Mr. Venugopal, I was not told about what to speak, but Prashant told me that I should speak about the legal profession, and if necessary, I can also chastise the members of the legal profession. So I have added a small paragraph on that. I am in general agreement with what Mr. Venugopal has said about the state of the legal profession in India, but I would like to go a little, back in this. Why are we wherever we are today? Why is it that the legal profession is being criticized today? I think we must step back and look at the status and the state of legal education in India. I think that is the beginning. Sometime in September this year, there was a conference where all the vice-chancellors of all the national law universities and maybe a few other universities were called. The program was held in the Indian Law Institute, and the speakers who spoke, they were all vice-chancellors, at least the ones that I heard were all vice-chancellors, and they gave a pretty dismal state of affairs of legal education. They talked about the fact that the faculty was not available. Many of the colleges, including national law universities, had just maybe about 3 or 4 full-time professors. They did not, of course, speak about the other colleges and universities, but I would imagine that they also perhaps had 3 or 4 professors, full-time professors. So there was a problem about the quality. There was a problem about pay scales. They were not getting the kind of pay scales that they deserved. Some of the private universities were paying maybe double the amount that was sanctioned by the UGC. So anybody who was good was actually picked up by the private universities, and he or she was more than happy to leave the National Law University. There were problems with the management of the universities. On the day when the function took place, on the day when the discussions took place, there were 5 national law universities that were facing some kind of a critical situation, either with the students on some kind of a protest, or there were allegations against the Vice-Chancellor, and so on. And that is out of, I think, about 19 or 20 national law universities. 5 of them were facing trouble on that one particular day, which is roughly about 20 or 25%. So really, there is a huge problem in legal education, and unfortunately, I don't think we are paying attention to it. There has been a mushroom growth of law colleges across the country. One of the speakers mentioned that there was something like 1,600 law colleges across the country. 70,000 law graduates were coming out of the law colleges. What is the impact of such a large number of lawyers coming out year after year? I remember when I was in school, we used to talk about engineers. There were a large number of engineers. Everybody was going in for engineering. When I came to college, everybody was going in for medicine. Today, everybody is going in for law. what is the impact going to be after about 10 or 15 years? Many of the engineers were rendered jobless. Some of them who could go outside the country, they went abroad. Many of the doctors refused to go to the rural areas where medical facilities are pretty poor. They wanted to stay in the cities because they had spent a lot in terms of fees and so on. I wonder what the impact is going to be of 70,000 lawyers coming out year after year, many of them having spent a huge amount on their legal education. What is going to happen? I think we can just wait for the next 10 or 15 years. So, and of course, this is also going to have an impact on litigation, because how are you going to keep so many lawyers busy? We are talking about 1 million lawyers who are on the rolls. How do you keep them busy? I mean, do you have that many cases that are there, or is it that lawyers generate litigation so that they can keep themselves busy? I think these are questions that we must look at. And in this context, I would just like to say that when the Bar Association was inaugurated Bar Association of India was inaugurated on 2nd April 1960, Dr. K. Munshi was present, and he gave a summary of what the then Attorney General spoke on the occasion. And he said that we have pledged, this is what the Attorney General had said, we have pledged ourselves to promote the improvement of legal education and to undertake instruction in law and allied subjects. I went to the website of the Bar Association of India to see what are the aims and objects of the Bar Association, and I find two which are relevant so far as legal education is concerned. One of them is Clause B, which says to promote the science of jurisprudence and to encourage and conduct research and investigation in legal and allied fields. Clause K says to promote the improvement of legal education, to impart instruction in law, and to conduct examinations for admission to the bar. Now, I think we need to ask ourselves, have we, whether it's the Bar Association of India or we as members of the legal fraternity, whether we are lawyers or judges, have we taken any steps in this direction to improve the quality of legal education? The second thing is that after the lawyers, after the students come out of the law schools and they become young lawyers, do we actually spend time in trying to nurture them to become good lawyers, or to become lawyers who can in the near future be looked up to by other younger lawyers? I would like to share with you the experience that we had in the Delhi High Court maybe about 10 or 15 years ago, where a decision was taken by the judges in consultation with the lawyers. I don't know who initiated the process, but the decision was to have a monthly program called Learning to Share. I'm sure Amanjeet would be aware of that, called Learning to Share. The idea was that once a month an eminent lawyer would come to the Delhi High Court and would speak on a topic of his choice or his speciality, or share his experiences with all the lawyers, including judges. And the idea was that it would benefit the younger lawyers who would be hopefully the majority of the audience. Now this continued maybe for a couple of months. We had maybe about 6 or 7 lectures, but then after that it faded away. I think Mr. Venugopal had also perhaps come for one of these Learning to Share programs. After I left Delhi High Court and I went to Guwahati, I carried this idea, and it was enthusiastically welcomed by the lawyers in Guwahati, and they said that yes, it's a good idea, let's try it out over here as well. So we tried it out in Guwahati, and unfortunately I think after about 2 lectures or 3 lectures, including one in Arunachal Pradesh, because they felt that the lawyers in Arunachal Pradesh were the ones who were actually in the need of quality assistance. We had one in Arunachal Pradesh as well. So maybe after 3 or 4 maximum, such programs, the whole thing fizzled out. Now, there are two reasons why, on an analysis, I found why this had fizzled out. One was that the senior lawyers were unwilling to come, whether it was in Delhi or whether it was in Guwahati. Lawyers from the northeast were not willing to go to the other states. That was one. The second was that the younger lawyers were not interested. I mean, the idea was that let's do some, miscellaneous applications, bail and this, that, and the other, challans and so on, and let's try and get some, earn a little bit of money. Why spend time, listening to lectures from eminent lawyers? So it was a combination of both. But the point that I'm trying to make is that we have not been able to somehow or the other get the younger lawyers and the older lawyers, or the lawyers of an older generation, to come together and to exchange their views, so that the younger lawyers learn from the experience and the quality of the older lawyers, nor are the older lawyers in a position to learn about what the younger lawyers think about the profession. So there is this sort of a disconnect, which I think needs to be looked at a little more carefully. We also had, I remember when I was studying in Delhi University, we also had lawyers coming and teaching us. And I know I've been told that in Bombay University, for example, people like Mr. Nalin Palkewala used to come, Mr. Y.V. Chandrachud used to come and teach. We never had those quality of lawyers coming and teaching us in Delhi University. We did have good lawyers. I have no quarrel about that at all. But over the years, the idea of lawyers going and teaching, or judges going and teaching young students has faded away. Again, the loss is that of the students. There are issues of preparing a case. There are some lawyers I know in Delhi who have taken the trouble of getting some kind of coaching from some organizations in the from England on how to prepare a case, how to argue a case, how to present a case. These are things which young lawyers need to know, but unfortunately we're not giving them that opportunity. I'm sure how to argue a case and all that is something that a lawyer would certainly like to know, but we are not in a position to give them that opportunity, and that is what is affecting the quality of our lawyers, and that is why we have this criticism that we are facing today. The third thing that I would like to share some views on are issues of judicial reforms. Again, how much of a discussion is there between lawyers and judges, between policy makers, between decision makers on judicial reforms? It's easy to talk about the judiciary or the justice delivery system in India being in a crisis. I've been hearing that for a very, very long time. But what have we done about it except having a couple of knee-jerk reactions? I remember when I was a young judge, Chief Justice Khare, I don't know how he got this idea, but there was a project which was sponsored by the Asian Development Bank, and he picked me up as a young judge to assist the Asian Development Bank in the project. I got involved in judicial reforms quite passionately and actively at that point of time, and I have retained my passion. So we came out with a large number of reports which were given to the Government of India, which were given to the Delhi High Court on various issues. But unfortunately, when it came to the crunch, the Delhi High Court said, listen, Asian Development Bank, it's a foreign organization. We don't have to learn anything from them. We are doing very well. We don't need somebody else to tell us how to improve. Now, if we have that kind of an attitude that we are the best, we can never improve. We have to be open to judicial reforms, to different thoughts. Mr. Venugopal has given today a thought about contingent fees. Maybe it's a good idea, maybe it's not a good idea, but let's discuss it. The problem is that the moment there is some issue that arises, or there is some crisis within inverted commas, we have a knee-jerk reaction. We talk about a large pendency of 2 crore 84 lakh cases pending. What is the definition of pendency? A case filed half an hour ago will be available on the internet and will be included in the pendency. Is that pendency? I don't think so. But we don't have a clear definition of that. I took an arbitrary decision and said that, all right, any case which is pending for 1 year should not be included in the pending cases or the pendency. And from 2 crore 84 lakhs, the pendency came down to 2 crore 4 lakhs. So 80 lakh cases just got wiped out. So unless we have clear definitions on what we are doing, what are we talking about, where are we going, and how do we achieve a particular result, I think we'll go on and on and on debating about the justice delivery system, judicial reforms, reforms in the legal profession, but never come to a definite conclusion. We also have issues of judges, doing all kinds of administrative work. National Legal Services Authority, Supreme Court Legal Services Authority, Library Committee, Purchase Committee. Every day I'm signing bills, 5 bills for medical. Some judge or his spouse or her spouse has had a problem. I'm signing bills for that. Purchase Committee. The other day I was given 3 plates because the crockery had got damaged. 3 kinds of plates. Which is the one to be selected? So there I am trying to figure out which is the right plate to select. Then I'm shown forks and knives. Do they match with this kind of plate that you selected? So I've got to figure that out as well. So these are issues which take up time, and unless we discuss all these things, the judicial reforms are going to continue to remain a pipe dream, and we'll be discussing this, like I said, for many years to come. What about Bar Association of India? How can that help? Well, first thing I think the Bar Association of India can do is to improve its website. I went to the website, and the last event held by the Bar Association of India was in 2009. There's been no activity according to the website of the Bar Association from 2009 onwards. But there are a few things which again, the Bar Association has looked at. I will go back to what Dr. K. Munshi said in his summary of what the Attorney General said on the inauguration, that we are also to take measures for the provision of free legal aid to the poor and the establishment and maintenance of a system of prompt and efficient legal advice for persons irrespective of their capacity to pay. This was 1960. So the idea of legal aid came much, much later. But in 1960, the Attorney General for India was talking about legal aid. What have we done about legal aid? Have we actually looked into it seriously? And by the way, this is also one of the objects of the aims and objects of the Bar Association of India. Have we looked at legal aid constructively? There are persons in rural India who need legal assistance. It is a fact, as Mr. Venugopal has said, that the fees in rural India are pretty bad. If you look at the memorandum of procedure for the appointment of judges, there are many judges from different parts of the country who do not meet the income criteria. That's because the fees are so low. So sometimes we have to make some adjustment, particularly in the northeast or Jammu and Kashmir and so on. But this is something that we need to look at very seriously, and the Bar Association had talked about it in 1960. Use of technology, I think that's one area where the Bar Association can play a very, very important role. We are now in a stage where we cannot look at justice delivery or look at the legal profession in an isolated form. We need to look at the entire legal profession, whether it's the bar or whether it's the bench, in a multidisciplinary manner. There are studies that have been done about brain development. something which I think judges should know about, which is something which defense lawyers should know about. So therefore, there has to be this involvement of doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, and so on. There are police reforms that are on the anvil. The police are doing a wonderful job in some areas, but are we actually looking at some of their problems, and how are we involving them in justice delivery, particularly in forensics? Civil society, there are specialists in civil society in a variety of issues. As a member of the social justice bench, I have come across persons who are experts in the environment, and not only in the environment but in forests. Somebody is an expert on water, somebody is an expert on hills. So it is this micro management that is being done to a very large extent by members of civil society. Are we actually involving them in the decision making process? Are we involving them in understanding the law? Are we involving them in implementing the law as it should be? I think we need to look at that, look at these experts, take their guidance, take their assistance as lawyers and perhaps as judges as well. Interaction with legislators. There was a time, I think a couple of years ago, when NALSA was invited to interact with members of parliament. And the members of parliament were pretty surprised that this is the kind of work which NALSA is doing. And NALSA was pretty surprised that the legislators were not clear about what law they were enacting. So unless there is this interaction between different sections of society, whether it's civil society, whether it's legislatures and so on, we are going to come to a standstill.